Here are the top stories for today, December 22nd, 2021. Areas ravaged by Typhoon Odette are now under a state of calamity as the government pledges funds while the international community ramps up aid for relief and rehabilitation efforts. More people are now expected to get booster doses against COVID-19 as the shortened interval for these doses gets the green light from the country's health authorities. Christmas cheers in Santa Rosa, Laguna are louder as visitors are in for a treat in a village featuring life-size Santa Claus figures ahead of the most wonderful day of the year. And over 64,000 people have been evacuated in neighboring Malaysia, which sees its worst flooding in decades. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. A state of calamity is in place in areas heavily battered by Typhoon Odette. President Rodrigo Duterte signed the declaration upon the recommendation of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC. President Duterte has also committed to raise an additional 10 billion pesos for typhoon response.
Idineklara ng Pangulo ang state of calamity sa mga lugar na naapektuhan ng bagyong Odette. Kasama rito ang Regions 4B, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 13. Ito ay para mapabilis ang rescue, relief, and rehabilitation efforts ng pamahalaan at sa sinumang gustong tumulong. Isa rin itong mabisang mekanismo para makontrol ang presyo ng mga bilihin sa mga nasabing lugar. Ipinag-utos din ng Pangulo ang pag-release ng pondo para tulungan ang mga taong naapektuhan ng bagyong Odette.
Malacanang is grateful to the international community, partners, and allies for their offer of assistance. Canada, Hungary, the United Kingdom, and New Zealand have pledged to provide over 187.9 million pesos to assist provinces hit hard by the onslaught of Typhoon Odette. On top of this, several countries like China, the United States, Japan, Israel, and Australia allocated in-kind goods for immediate deployment to the affected families. In a press briefing today, Cabinet Secretary and Acting Presidential Spokesperson Carlo Nograles thanked the international community as well as the Metro Manila mayors who earlier poured their resources for the victims of Typhoon Odette.
Sa gitna ng trahedya, nakita natin na buhay ang bayanihan spirit. Nagpapasalamat kami sa Metro Manila mayors who approved a supplemental budget sa pamamagitan ng isang resolusyon na nagkakalaga ng 100 million pesos para tulungan ang mga lugar na naapektuhan ng bagyong Odette. We are likewise grateful to our friends in the international community, partners and allies for their offers of assistance. These include Australia, Canada, China, the European Union, France, Japan, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, the United Nations, and the State of Qatar, among others. Maraming salamat po sa inyo.
The Presidential Communications Operations Office has initiated a donation drive for typhoon victims called the Bangon Vismin Typhoon Odette Donation Drive. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar, who is also the Cabinet Officer for Regional Development and Security for Northern Mindanao, said the initiative will help send additional relief assistance to the affected families in Regions 7, 10, and Caraga. Andanar said there are more than 20,000 families affected in Northern Mindanao, with at least 4,700 families in evacuation centers. He said the PCOO is responding to affected families in the Caraga region, including Surigao City, Siargao Islands, and Dinagat Islands. More help is coming in for typhoon victims in the Visayas region. This as the government, private sector, and the church are pooling their resources to extend the much-needed help in the area. The details from Chris Mundo.
The Philippine Army has deployed additional communication equipment in Palawan, Cebu, and Tacloban City to hasten the government's disaster response. Army Chief Major General Romeo Bronner Jr. said some of the deployed equipment to typhoon-affected areas are satellite phones, VSAT, and electric generators. He said these are over and above the issued satellite phones, VSAT, and military radios deployed in all Army units nationwide. Bronner also assures the Filipino people that the Philippine Army is working 24/7 with other government agencies and sectors to expedite the necessary assistance to reach the affected residents. Meanwhile, San Miguel Corporation has activated its network in the Visayas and Mindanao regions to deliver truckloads of food worth almost 20 million pesos. This as the company dispatches fuel stocks at its Petron installations and provides access to water to help fence-line communities. SMC also immediately extend aid to stricken cities and communities, with its donations reaching 30 million pesos as of Monday. Meanwhile, the Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, popularly known as the Manila Cathedral, is also raising funds for the victims of Typhoon Odette. So far, the Basilica has raised over 3 million pesos. Manila Archbishop Jose Cardinal Advincula earlier announced that all mass collections and online donations to the Manila Cathedral from the evening of December 18 and the whole day of December 19 will be given to the victims of Typhoon Odette. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, are tasked to identify and confirm the total number of deaths related to Typhoon Odette. They will also help families in identifying the body of their loved ones. DOJ Secretary Menardo Guevara said the forensic group of the National Bureau of Investigation will be deployed on the ground to conduct the necessary tests to identify the victims. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police, or PNP, will also help in verifying if the reported casualties are related to the recent onslaught of Typhoon Odette. This came as the PNP in its latest consolidated report as of yesterday said that at least 375 were killed, 515 were injured, and 56 remain missing in the aftermath of Odette. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said the PNP report is still considered as raw as some of the deaths may not be directly caused by the typhoon. As of this morning, the NDRRMC confirmed that at least 11 people have died due to the onslaught of Typhoon Odette, while 166 deaths are still under evaluation. In its update, the agency said it is still validating reports of another 166 deaths due to the typhoon. 2 were confirmed injured, while another 273 injured and 38 missing are still being validated. Typhoon-affected workers in northern Mindanao can get assistance from the Department of Labor and Employment. Dole Region 10 Director Albert Gutib said qualified individuals can get assistance under the agency's Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged or Displaced Workers, or TUPAD program. Under the program, beneficiaries will be employed for 4 hours a day for at least 10 days, up to 30 days, and will be paid based on the prevailing minimum wage in the region where they were hired. Gutib said the list of beneficiaries will be based on the data provided by the respective disaster risk reduction management councils in each local government unit. Aside from affected workers, Dole also released about 867 million pesos to 162,882 beneficiaries in the region through the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, or CAMP, Abot Kamay ang Pagtulong, or AKAP, and Tabang Overseas Filipino Workers. Still ahead, no let-up in vaccination seen as the interval for booster doses against COVID-19 is now shortened. And at least 8 people were killed as Malaysia faces its worst flooding in years, forcing over 64,000 people to move to safer grounds. Details ahead. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Mga kabida, hindi pa rin nawawala ang banta ng COVID-19. Upang masiguro ang kaligtasan ninyo at ng inyong pamilya, hanapin ang safety seal sticker sa inyong pupuntahan. Mapamall man ito, kainan, pasyalan o kahit anong business establishment. Ang safety seal ay tanda ng isang establishmento ay sumusunod sa minimum public health standards ng gobyerno para maiwasan ang pagkalat ng COVID-19. Ating tandaan, bida ang may disiplina. #SafetySeal para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bayan.
The Department of Health shortens the interval for the administration of COVID-19 booster doses starting today. Under the new policy, boosters may already be given to adults at least 3 months after the second dose of a primary 2-dose vaccine or at least 2 months after the primary single-dose vaccine. DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III said priority will still remain among those who are yet to receive their primary series. The Philippines has registered a total of 3.7 million administered COVID-19 vaccines during the first day of the Bayanihan Bakunahan event. Health Undersecretary and National Vaccination Operations Center Chairperson Mirna Cabotaje says most of the jabs given were second doses of the primary series.
Ang pinakamaraming nabakunahan ay yung ating mga second doses. Almost one half ang ating second doses kahapon. 2.1 million ang second dose at 1.1 ang ating first dose. May mga 289,000 tayo na booster. In terms of the sector, marami pa rin ang ating pediatric population, tapos sumunod yung rest of the adult, tapos yung mga ibang priority groups ay nababakunahan din.
Cabotaje says the NVOC is looking at using all the 9 million doses to reach the 54 million target before the year ends.
We are looking at using all the 9 million na dumating para maka-reach tayo ng 54 million. Pero alam natin na kailangan doble, tripling effort, especially in many areas. Babawian natin yung hindi nagbabakuna doon sa mga areas na hindi nasalanta ng bagyo kagaya ng 3 and 4A. Sana humataw pa sila, mas marami pa silang mabakunahan para yung hindi magbabakuna ay ma-offset naman. But with some difficulty, but we are still optimistic na ma-meet natin yung 54 million at the end of this year.
About 1.3 million doses of Moderna COVID-19 vaccines arrived in the country on Tuesday night. The shipment procured by the private sector arrived via Korean Air Flight KE623 at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 1 in Pasay City. Officials from the National Task Force Against COVID-19 and the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process welcomed the shipment upon its arrival. Earlier, the country received about 1.6 million doses of Pfizer vaccines from the United States, almost 1.7 million doses of AstraZeneca from France, and 500,000 AstraZeneca shots from Argentina. The Philippine Statistics Authority reminds the public once again that the Philippine identification or national ID must be honored in all transactions requiring proof of a client's identity. The PSA has received continuous reports that some private companies and government agencies refuse to recognize the PhilID. The PSA maintains that the PhilSys National Identification Card is valid and can be used for any legal transactions. It has also been issuing repeated reminders that those who don't accept the PhilID in transactions will be penalized by as much as 500,000 pesos under the PhilSys Act. The Department of Foreign Affairs earlier confirmed it is honoring the national ID in passport applications. And in our news overseas, 8 people have been reported dead due to severe flooding in Malaysia as of Monday. State news agency Bernama said that 8 casualties were reported as floods hit various districts in Selangor. The number of displaced persons rose to over 64,000 in 7 states plus the federal territory of Kuala Lumpur. The worst hit state is Pahang along the east coast of Peninsula Malaysia, with over 34,000 people being evacuated to flood relief centers. The flood situation in the capital of Kuala Lumpur has eased in part due to its flood mitigation facility known as the Smart Tunnel. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob said more resources, including personnel and equipment, are being deployed to aid with evacuation and flood relief. He urged the public to stay calm as many are trapped in areas that are still flooded in parts of the country. Up next, the Philippine Sports Commission will extend aid to typhoon-hit athletes and coaches. And it's Ho 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 Merry Christmas as a village in Laguna features life-size Santa Claus figures. More stories when the PNA Newsroom returns.
Hi everyone, James Deacon here. The COVID-19 vaccines are finally here, and the government wants to make sure the vaccines reach us. So let's do our part by making sure that we get registered to be included in the vaccination list of our LGU. You can register right in the comfort and safety of your own homes through your LGU's online registration platform. And you can also register on-site in the vaccination venues or through your barangay. Remember, getting vaccinated is the first step towards ending this pandemic. So let's do our part as disciplined citizens. Bida ang may disiplina. Magpakarehistro at magpabakuna para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bayan.
Flights to Cebu and Siargao may resume soon, depending on weather and wind conditions, and even then, only relief distribution teams may be accommodated. Cebu Pacific spokesperson Carmina Romero said they have very limited capacity for the passengers they can board due to technical and aircraft capability. A notice to airmen canceling all commercial flights was previously issued to the Surigao and Siargao airports. Both will only accommodate relief, humanitarian, and government flights. Mounting more flights will also depend on the airport situation. Around 600 Cebu Pacific employees based in Cebu were also affected by the typhoon. Romero said the estimated 25,000 Cebu Pacific passengers affected by cancellations may opt to refund, rebook, or place a ticket value into a travel fund for future use. The Philippine Sports Commission is set to provide 15,000 pesos in cash assistance for about 85 athletes and 20 coaches affected by the destruction brought about by Typhoon Odette. PSC Chairman William Ramirez has initiated a relief operation to also send about 10,000 bottled water and 900 units of mattresses. The Special Services Office of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, which oversees the detailed service of the country's military athletes, partnered with the PSC to ensure that these reach their intended recipients. A 50,000 peso financial aid for the rehabilitation of the weightlifting gym in Bohol has also been approved for release to start immediate repairs. Ramirez expressed hope for the affected athletes that the heart of champions in them beats stronger and prod them to raise up and help themselves and those around them. The province of Pangasinan is bouncing back amid the pandemic, with tourism and the economy recovering along with its people. The number of COVID-19 cases in Pangasinan has dropped to 46 active cases as of December 20, while the daily average infection rate is now at 5 compared to 435 last September. As of December 16, some 1.6 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered in the province as first dose, while about 1 million doses for the second dose have been administered. For its part, the Department of Labor and Employment recently conducted its first face-to-face job fair that catered to some 300 Pangasinense job seekers. Different national government agencies have distributed livelihood assistance worth 6.7 million pesos from January 1 to December 16 this year. Meanwhile, the Department of Tourism has launched the Bike Trail Tourism Project in San Fabian to aid in physical and mental health and attract more domestic tourists. About 1,065 barangays have been cleared of drugs according to the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA, while some 41 former supporters of the CPP-NPA pledged allegiance to the national government anew. Build projects in the province are also in full swing, such as the 7.17-kilometer bypass road in Urdaneta City, which benefits about 38,000 motorists daily. In Santa Rosa, Laguna, there's no shortage of Santa Clauses ready to bring in Christmas cheer to visitors and residents alike. The Santa Claus Village in the City Plaza in Barangay Kanluran is attracting locals looking for a way to safely enjoy the holidays with their friends and families. The Santa Claus Village was organized by Santa Rosa City's Cultural Affairs Office with more decorations than ever to cheer people as pandemic restrictions are eased. To ensure everyone's safety, minimum public health standards are still strictly implemented. The picture-perfect display will run until the city's annual Sikhayan Festival. Aside from the Santa Claus Village, the City Cultural Affairs Office has also prepared a lineup of virtual activities and events throughout the month, including community fireworks displays authorized by the city's government. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Areas ravaged by Typhoon Odette are now under a state of calamity as the government pledges funds while the international community ramps up aid for relief and rehabilitation efforts. More people are now expected to get booster doses against COVID-19 as the shortened interval for these doses gets the green light from the country's health authorities. Christmas cheers in Santa Rosa, Laguna are louder as visitors are in for a treat in a village featuring life-size Santa Claus figures ahead of the most wonderful day of the year. And over 64,000 people have been evacuated in neighboring Malaysia, which sees its worst flooding in decades. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And for our holiday countdown, we are down to the last 3 days before Christmas Day. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day and happy holidays, everyone.